Have it done.
All right. I hate this stuff.
Okay.
The earphones. Still can't hear what they're talking about.
Okay, let's see, Larry. I'm going to just call out some names. I can see that you're unmuted. Okay, that's better. Got another person in the lobby here. So I'm just, yeah, let folks in. And yeah, please be sure to keep yourself muted when you're not speaking. Let's see, one more here. And then we'll do introductions. Okay, and I see, okay, maybe we've got it all straightened up. Great. Well, thanks everyone for coming. We are here to talk about planning for Halibut 2025. Just kind of, I don't know, a little bit scary that we're already at this point in the year of 2024. So I'll start with introduction. So I'm Lorna Wargo with the Intergovernmental Ocean Policy Group. We have quite a few WDFW staff on board the meeting today, but I'll kick it off to Heather and let her introduce herself, and then we can also just let you know who else is on from the agency, and then we can go to the other participants. So Heather?
Oops. Hi, everyone. Heather Hall. I was so worried about being muted, I forgot to unmute. Good to see you all here.
So let's see. In addition to Heather, we have Karen Klumpkin, Ann Stevenson with our Puget Sound sampling team. We have Captain Dan Chadwick on the line as well. And let me see, I'm going to scroll down here. I think, oh, and we also have Erica Wayland with our ocean sampling program, and Mark Uwasa with our public affairs group. So thanks all of you from the agency for attending, and then thanks all of you also are attending. I think we also have a few staff from the National Marine Fisheries Service. Appreciate your attendance, and I see some council staff as well. I think what I'll do is ask, I'm just going to read down the list of those in attendance, starting with phone numbers. If you could just say your name and your affiliation, and if you're just a general public person, that's great. Just welcome you as well. So I'm seeing number ending in 7172. Just curious who you might be.
Dave Johnson.
Okay.
I'm on audio on my phone, Lorna.
Okay, gotcha. So you're showing up twice. Perfect. Okay. And then phone number ending in 3295. Okay. Not sure who that is, but if you have a chance, we can come back. Then there's a phone number ending in 6705. If you could introduce yourself.
Richard Graham, Westport Charter Boat
Richard Graham.
representative.
All right. Welcome, Richard. Charter. Okay, then I'll start down with list of names just as they're showing here. So including some agency folks. So Angela Forrestal.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Angela Forrestal, council staff.
Thank you. And then Brandon.
Yeah, Brandon Mason, Marine Area 5.
Thank you. Butch.
Butch Smith, El Waco.
Right. And Dave Johnson.
Dave Johnson, Ocean.
Glenn? You want to introduce yourself, Glenn?
You're up, Glenn.
Sorry about that. Glenn, Area 5, Column Bay, CQ Chamber of Commerce.
All right, thanks, Glenn. I wasn't sure, maybe you couldn't hear. Then we have Heather Fitch.
Heather Fitch, NOAA Fisheries.
All right, thanks, Heather. Then Larry Phillips.
Hey guys, Larry Phillips, American Sport Fishing Association.
See you. Mel Mandrup.
Hello, Mel Mandrup, National Marine Fisheries Service.
Thanks, Mel. Then Paul Moranti. Might be difficult. I know he's somewhere in Eastern Washington, so it might be difficult for him. So we'll just go on. And then Steve Wester.
Hello, Laura.
Either. And I think that is it for everyone on the call. So thank you for introducing yourselves, and just again wanted to welcome you all. So the primary purpose of this meeting, let's see, I'm going to pause here and share my screen. And then Heather, at this point, I'll need you to note any hands, because I'll be flying blind from here on out.
Okay, I got it, Lorna.
Okay, and I'll see the title slide.
It looks good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So most of you are familiar with this purpose of this meeting, but just for anyone that isn't, and then for those viewers that might see this recording online, our goal today is to begin planning for 2025 with the main purpose of selecting a Washington range of options and a preliminary preferred option to take to the September council meeting. And we'll cover more of those details as we move forward in the presentation. So
Hey, Lorna, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me, Lorna,
Paul.
now? Oh yeah, I
Yes.
just wanted, I figured it out. Just to say I'm the Groundfish Advisory Panel representative for the Coastal Washington Charter Boat.
Okay, great. Thanks, Paul. Okay, so for today's agenda, we'll be walking through introductions, then kind of proceeding through just an overview of halibut management. For most of you, this will be old news. Then we'll review the 2024 season to date, and then get more into the meat of what we're here for this evening. And that's just ideas and options for planning for 2025, and then wrap up with next steps, hoping to adjourn at 6:30, if not sooner. So beginning with the overview, for halibut, there are multiple players involved in management. The International Pacific Halibut Commission, or IPHC, is an organization established by convention between Canada and the US in 1923. The IPHC has been managing and researching halibut for about 100 years, making halibut one of the best understood stocks. And based on scientific advice, the IPHC sets the allowable harvest of halibut annually for both countries. At the U.S. federal level, both the Pacific Fishery Management Council and National Marine Fisheries Service have roles in management. The PFMC, or council as we call it as well, is one of 8 regional councils in the U.S. that are responsible for managing fisheries in federal waters, and it coordinates management between Washington, Oregon, California, and Idaho. The council sets policy, develops management plans and recommendations. And then the National Marine Fisheries Service, or NMFS, in turn is the federal regulatory and management body for fisheries. Regulations recommended by the council are implemented through NMFS. Relative to halibut, the council determines how the quota that is set by the IPHC for the U.S. will be allocated among the fishers on the U.S. West Coast, and this is accomplished through the catch sharing plan. We'll detail that a little bit more later. And then finally, WDFW has an advisory role in the management of halibut with responsibilities for monitoring and enforcing Washington fisheries and facilitating stakeholder engagement. Here you can see the IPHC regulatory areas in this map, just to kind of orient you to the region that is under their jurisdiction. As you can see, the sub-areas encompass Alaska from the Bering Sea south to British Columbia and the U.S. West Coast. Washington, there on the far right in the bottom corner, falls within Catch Area 2A along with Oregon and California. And Area 2 is considered the tail end of the range of for halibut, and thus our fisheries are considered somewhat inconsequential to the status of the halibut resource. This slide presents Washington catch areas and how we refer to them for halibut management. Beginning in the south, we have the Columbia River, which is Marine Area 1, the South Coast at Westport, or Marine Area 2, the North Coast, which includes La Push and Nia Bay, or Marine Areas 3 and 4, and the Puget Sound, which includes the Straits, or Marine Area 5, and Marine Areas 6 through 10. And across all of these areas, we are monitoring the fisheries, conducting dockside interviews, collecting length data, and conducting oversights in Puget Sound areas, and then generating catch estimates for each area as well. Continuing on, as mentioned, the management of halibut in Area 2A is accomplished through the council's catch sharing plan. This is a council document that guides the tribal, non-tribal, commercial, and recreational halibut fisheries off of the coasts of Washington, Oregon, and California by describing a catch allocation formula and the general season structure for the fisheries, especially for the recreational sector. And each year, the IPHC meets in January to determine the total allowable catch. And then this allowable catch is then allocated to 2A fisheries through the framework described in the plan. And the framework is updated annually and then implemented in both IPHC regulations and domestic regulations via NMFS. And there's a link to the copy that's posted to the council website. Next, here you can see an illustration with the two pie charts of the framework, which describes or prescribes how the 2A CTAC is shared. The first or top pie chart just shows the tribal, non-tribal sharing of the 2A area TAC, with 65% to the non-tribal fisheries and 35% to the tribal. And then below that in the bottom box, you see a pie chart that then takes that 65% of the non-tribal share and breaks it further down to the commercial, which receives 31% for Washington, Oregon, California combined. And then each state, with Washington Sport receiving 35%, Oregon Sport 30%, and California Sport 4%. And then to the right of the pie charts is a table which shows the 2A TAC for 2024. And this total allowable catch has already been reduced from a total fishery exploitable yield of 1.65 million. So you often hear us refer to that TCEY, and this is the FCEY. So it's what the fishery is allowed to harvest. And the difference between those is a reduction to account for bycatch and wastage across all sectors. And then below that, you can see the specific values, which I won't read through here, for how those percentages fell out for 2024. Right. So I will kick it over to Heather to kind of walk us through just the specific Washington catch sharing plan elements. Heather?
Okay, there we
Okay,
go.
good.
Thanks. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Also contained within the cat sharing plan are specific goals to management for Washington. And a couple of the overarching goals relative to our recreational fisheries are: one, establishing season structures for each sub area that maximizes fishing opportunity in a way that achieves but doesn't exceed our sub area quotas. And then also flexibility through our in-season actions, such as opening additional fishing days or shifting quotas between sub areas. And we recognize that flexibility may be necessary just to achieve an overall Washington sport allocation and fishery objectives. The cat sharing plan also describes season structure objectives that are applicable to all of our sub areas and some that are sub area specific. So for all sub areas, we have included an objective where we have been developing our season dates by the end of November, so that the public is aware of those dates by the end of the year, and can plan for halibut in the upcoming year. If we have remaining quota after the end of our early season or our spring season, after the last day in June, we can open additional fishing in August and September. And each sub area could have the potential to be open up to 7 days per week in August and September, and have our season structures so that there are periodic closures so that we can get a catch estimate and then take in-season action if we need to determine if there's enough quota to proceed. Specific to some of the sub areas for Puget Sound, we have had an earlier opening date in that area in April 1, for those sub areas within Puget Sound. In the coastal sub areas, opening in May or April. In the South Coast, which is Marine Area 2, there's a sub area provision in there that allows for a near shore area if we have just enough of that sub area quota left that doesn't provide for a full offshore day, that we can take some of that quota in the near shore if needed. Columbia River, important to note that we do co-manage the Columbia River area and coordinate the season dates for that area with ODFW. And then Columbia River also has a near shore area that opens on days when the all depth fishery isn't open. We reserve just a bit of that sub area quota for that. In addition to the catch sharing plan, the department has worked with our stakeholders over the years and followed a set of principles that helped us guide season setting for recreational fisheries. And these, I think, just really reflect our unique situation in Washington. We've also really tried to incorporate this flexible approach to managing our fishery in season. And then when considering late season opportunity, specifically in August and September, we're focused on achieving our statewide quota, but we're also looking at sub-area allocations where those allocations can be relaxed to achieve that quota. Skip the So on this slide is it's something we've put together to help orient folks to the full halibut management timeline, what happens when and all of that. So here we are in August. This is our first opportunity to review the past season, even though it's not over yet, and start planning for the upcoming season. The 2025 season is what we're thinking about now. In mid-September, the council will meet, and this is where we take recommendations that we hear from you today and forward them to the council in a WDFW report. And the council will take action to approve those for public review. So we are opening the opportunity for people to respond what we've presented in September. Then in October, we have another meeting like this with all of you. We look at what we put out in that full range of proposals and narrow that down so that when we go to the council in November, we're presenting our recommended final preferred alternative. And then the council will approve those, and there's still a couple other steps before they're finalized. Also in late November, this is where there's some alignment with what's going on at the IPHC. They have their interim meeting in late November, usually right around Thanksgiving, and that's where we get our first chance to look at their stock assessment results. There we'll hear the and get a preview of harvest limits. The interim meeting also provides an opportunity to hear about research proposals and any regulatory changes. Over the winter, and some of these regulatory changes, and they'll also come up at the IPHC annual meeting, which is late January. At times it's been early February, but typically late January is the IPHC annual meeting. This is the full annual meeting where the final stock assessment results are presented, and the halibut commissioners have the opportunity to make their policy decisions on setting harvest limits for all of the areas in that IPHC regulatory area map that Lorna presented earlier on. This has been a really important meeting for us since 2019. And this is where the idea of having a consistent area 2A, which is our area, quota has been in play, and that effort was driven largely by the tribes who were struggling, as were we, to prosecute meaningful fisheries with the quota that we had back in the 2017, 16, 15, those years. And the proposal was that we have a consistent to a quota of 1.65 million pounds every year, as long as there isn't a conservation concern. And this brought into play, again, what Lorna mentioned at the beginning in the introduction to that. We are at the southern end of the range, and the resource can handle that consistent 2A quota in our area, because we don't have a big impact on the huge stock in its full range. So we have been able to do that when there's a lot of focus on attendance at the IPHC annual meeting. We usually see representatives from the majority of the Washington tribes, managers from the 3 states go, and we're also very grateful to have stakeholders and recreational fishers that attend those meetings when they can. Then in March, after the IPHC, they will adopt any changes to the catch sharing plan. And then following that is when National Marine Fisheries Service implements the final changes to the catch sharing plan within their regulations. And then through our state regulatory process, we'll adopt our rules that conform with the federal rules. So some of you may know who've been involved in the process throughout last year, through this entire year. California was wanting to consider changes to the allocation structure within the catch sharing plan. They and increase the allocation that goes to the California fisheries. And what we did instead was we didn't make an allocation change, but we did agree to this flexible management that we're talking about within our state on the West Coast, so that if we got to a point in the season and it looked like one state was going to have quota that they couldn't take by the end of their season, it could be used by another state. And I bring this up just because we had a meeting with the 3 West Coast states today, and with staff from the council and National Marine Fisheries Service. And so this is the first time we've had the opportunity to have that conversation and this check-in. Right now, well, it looks like there's potentially some buffer available. It doesn't look like California is needing it. Their projections, their projected catch through the end of their season, which goes to the end of November, looks like it's going to be within their quota. We'll get into a little bit more about where we are with our quota and our projections here in the next few slides, but it didn't, our takeaway from that was it's great that there's some buffer if we need it. We're going to check in again in early September just to evaluate where all the fisheries are. But it doesn't look like fisheries will, especially in California, need to be closed early or exceed their quota. So that was good news, but we'll be keeping in touch with our 3 West Coast states.
Heather, I see Steve Westrick has his hand up.
Okay.
Maybe if you're done, we could pause here for a question before I jump in.
Okay.
Go ahead, Steve.
Is now, do we ask questions during your presentation? But I want to say, Lorna and Heather, that was great how you laid that out, because the management timeline thing, because we kind of forget it, and that was great what you said.
Good. Yeah. Do you have any questions about what we went through, Steve? Because we've got more, and we'll get into the details and the nitty gritty in the next few slides.
Okay. I want to go back one slide, and hit a bullet that I say, which was really great, but I can save that for later.
No, let's do it.
The one about provide advance notice of season dates to allow anglers to plan. Bullet number 2, that's a huge deal for the charter boat people. Just get that out there.
Yeah, I think everyone on the, thanks for that, Steve. I was noticing the attendance here. I think everyone has been attending these meetings for long enough that they've seen that implemented. But what a lot of people don't know is earlier years, we actually, and especially for Puget Sound, because we didn't have in-season catch estimates for Puget Sound. We knew the catch at the end of the season. And we didn't set season dates until February of the year of the season. So I think, and we also didn't want to put out season dates that we felt, we knew they were preliminary until they're adopted into federal rule, but it's just been so much more helpful to have them noted on our webpage in November. Even though they're preliminary, we really haven't seen where the dates change, and we put them out there because we recognize they're good for planning. They're unlikely to change, but we also know, we haven't quite put them into regulation. So that's how that's worked.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
glad
that's
you
great.
feel it's a good thing.
Even if it doesn't work out, people realize that this could be a date. It might not happen, but it's helpful. So,
Good.
okay, thank you. Go on.
Thanks, Steve. So, if you're done with the timeline, Heather, I'll move on.
Yep, sounds good, Lorna.
Okay. All right. So, with this meeting, as we've mentioned, we're kicking off planning for 2025. And it's helpful to kind of walk through the 2024 season. So this is looking at this year to date, which is through June, which is all the halibut fishing we've had so far. And it's useful to consider the strategy we took for 2024 and the schedule, and just see what catch has been so far. Some of the elements here that are shown in blue are carried over from 2023. So in thinking about setting up the 2024 season, we are again trying to put more opportunity and push it earlier in Puget Sound in the spring. We again aligned the straits, Area 5 with Puget Sound rather than the North Coast, which had been the practice, I believe, in the past. The South Coast, we added a third day in May. And then again, looking at a flexible in-season approach, adding dates in August and September. This year, we didn't add dates in June, which we had done in the past. I think generally we're getting to a point where we trust or have some confidence that we're not going to blow through the quota by the end of May, as had happened, pre-pandemic years, that experience of probably a decade where it was lucky to get through Memorial Day weekend, and any time in June was a bonus. So it's taken a while, I think, for everyone to get comfortable with their sort of new post-pandemic reality, the effort and other aspects of the fishery, the dynamics have changed, and that we can be a little bit more ambitious with the number of days that are scheduled. So I think you'll see as I walk through the slides that has proven to be the case for 2024. But just to kind of overview for the specifics, Puget Sound opened Thursday, April 4th. And that's about 2 weeks earlier than had been done in the past. And it opened at 7 days per week, April and May, compared to 5 days in 2023. And then again, 7 days per week in June, which was the same as 2023. For Area 5, we aligned the season with Puget Sound, as I mentioned. And then for the North Coast, open May 2nd with 3 days per week, with Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, except a Memorial Day weekend. It's a Friday and Sunday schedule. And then on the South Coast, open May 2nd, 3 days per week, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, except closed on the Sunday Memorial Day weekend, and then opened a scheduled 8 days in June, on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, starting the second week of June. And for the Columbia River this year, we opened May 2nd as well at a 3-day per week schedule aligned with the South Coast. And then in June, opened 3 days per week with a Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday schedule. The other thing that I didn't note there in the top of the blue is that for 2024, we started the year out with a 6 fish annual limit based on public input and the fact that although not a lot of anglers will catch the 4 annual limit that's been the standard for many years, creating some additional opportunity by bumping that up was seen as a positive step by anglers. And so compared to 2023, where we just did it for the late season, we started this year with the 6 fish right from the get-go. So just to walk you through where we're at, high level, we're at through June 30th, 74% of the Washington quota has been caught. Compared to prior years, that represents a little higher attainment. So compared to 2023, we were at 67% at the same time. And then in 2022, we'd only attained 56% of the quota. So I think that reflects the, obviously the variables with ocean conditions and effort that we can't control for. But also I think those additional days and opportunity that we've kind of front loaded to the spring, I think that's bearing out in where we stand relative to the end of June compared to past years. So going into the late season, what we're working with is about 78,000 pounds of halibut. And here you can see, just to kind of walk you through the detail, for the North Coast, percent of quota is at 77%. And that's, I think, close to where it was last year. Puget Sound is actually lagging back behind a little bit at 67%. I believe last year they were a little further along. Likewise, the South Coast was a little further along last year, and Columbia River as well. But overall, we've taken about 3/4 of the statewide quota. So not much different from last year generally by area, but some total for the state. Yeah, I think we're seeing where that season structure has helped us. So for the late season opportunity in early June, we held a public meeting to discuss how to structure the late season based on indications we'd have sufficient quota to provide meaningful opportunity. So here you see for the Columbia River and South Coast, this schedule results in 13 consecutive days of fishing in August and early September. So opening August 22nd and running straight through to September 3rd. It's hard to tell, but those are consecutive days. And then there's a pause or a break. And the fishery would then open on September 5th, which is a Thursday, and then proceed with a Thursday to Sunday, Tuesday schedule for the rest of September. And then for the North Coast and Straits, the late season will open, I think this Friday is August 16th, and is proposed to run 7 days per week through the remainder of the period. Obviously, if we obtain a quota, we'll be closing the fishery. I'll note that this is a new approach to structuring the late season, although we don't have a lot of late season years altogether, but we've typically not run so many consecutive days for Area 1 and 2 or the Columbia River and South Coast. So again, still exploring sort of the new era of halibut fisheries that we're in and seeing what kind of opportunity we can provide and what will work. So this is definitely a different approach this year. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. All right, so shifting to considering planning for 2025. As in 2024, we're thinking that we want to have a tiered approach. I think it was very useful since we don't know what the IPHC will adopt for the 2A TAC until the end of January. This provides us some flexibility in structuring options that anticipate, if there's more opportunity, if the quota is greater than 1.3 million pounds, and we can also structure options ahead of time and in anticipation if the quota were to be equal to or less than 1.3 million pounds. So proposing to consider that again for 2025. For the coast, again, focus on scheduling dates through the pre-season process. I think we've been able to successfully accomplish adding dates in June, but it is a challenge for the entire process collectively. And so the more we can put dates up front, just facilitates making the whole season go smoother. And again, kind of links back to trying to provide as much advance notice to the public as possible. And proposing to align Area 5 with Areas 6 through 10. And then for all areas in August and September, having Area 5 through 10 open when salmon closes, which is typically about mid-August. And then at least for 2025, might consider some consecutive days. We don't necessarily need to make those kinds of decisions at this point. We typically leave the August and September for input in June, but just kind of throwing that out there as ideas to consider for 2025. And also just kind of flag for your attention our need when we're setting halibut seasons to balance impacts to yellow eye rockfish and other rockfish. So we're seeing some increases in catch of some of our smaller populations of rockfish like copper, quillback, and vermilion. So just want to flag that. We also have some sampling constraints which limit when we can offer opportunity, in particular July. We just internally don't have the capacity to sample and meet the obligations for salmon and halibut sufficiently. So we pause and don't have halibut opportunity in July. And again, sort of this trying to put more of our season dates up front is just to recognize NMF's regulatory schedule requirements. They're a little bit more rigorous and tight than what we're used to within the state. And then again, we coordinate with Columbia River, or I'm sorry, we coordinate Oregon with Oregon on the Columbia River. And then for Area 1, each year we do get input from commercial halibut fishermen that fish in the directed fishery for us to consider not having the sport fishery in Area 1 open the same days that they're open. And so that fishery for directed halibut is usually Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, the last week of June. So just some of the things that we try and keep in mind and balance as we're setting up options for each season. So here, this is where we can kind of get into the nitty gritty. And I will say that the idea here was to get conceptually the proposals. And we can flag if I've missed any particular dates, trying to map. So we think of 2024 as status quo, which I've characterized in the set of slides as option 1. And sometimes navigating from the 2024 calendar and translating that to what that would look like in 2025. I'll just say up front, I might have missed a particular date, but the idea for status quo is that we match the structure and then account for the specific date changes. So option 1, status quo. Again, here you'll see the tiered approach where if the TAC is above 1.3 million pounds, we're going to propose a 7-day per week schedule beginning April 3rd and running through June 30th. And then if the quota remains, we would open 7 days, up to 7 days per week in August and September. If the TAC is equal to or below 1.3 million pounds, then we would propose opening April 3rd, 5 days per week through June 30th. Thursday through Monday. So closing the fishery on Tuesday and Wednesday. And then again, if quota remains, open up to 7 days per week in August and September. And I can either pause here for questions or we can go through each of the areas because I have a slide for each.
Lorna, there is Glenn has a question.
Okay.
My question is, why can't we just keep it at option 1, no matter what the quota is, and manage the difference within our state regulations? Why make changes to the catch sharing plan when we got what we have? Why don't we just manage it in season like we do now? Why not just leave it?
This is a way of getting, if I'm understanding your question correctly, by having it linked to the TAC, we can start, like, it presents it to the public and through this process. in a way where it's clear that if we have this higher TAC, it's 7 days a week, but if the TAC falls lower, then it's 5 days per week, rather than waiting till the end of January when we would know what the TAC is and then try and figure out, like, are we at 7 or 5 and having to adjust. So if that gets at your, I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, I understand I guess I understand what you're saying. I guess I just don't necessarily agree that we need to put that out and go through the federal process with that. Just leave it as is and manage it within our state.
Yeah, Glenn, we don't have to change the cat sharing because we did this last year. So this is status quo. So we really, this is done. So this is what you see on this slide is already what's in place. But I think you brought up the similar point last year when we were talking about it. And I think you're saying simplistically, let's just say everything's open, April 1 to September 30th, 7 days a week, and then we'll figure it out. The problem is what I think Lorna is explaining is we need to provide some notice to stakeholders of what the intent on how the season dates will look. And so at least this says if we have something below 1.3, we probably can't go 7 days a week. Maybe we can, but
I mean, this year is a perfect example. And, we don't want halibut to be open when the king fishing is open in Puget Sound or in the Puget Sound areas. So this is a perfect example. If we were set for 7 days a week and managing it with our own guidelines, we could have opened up for halibut on August 1st this year, because that's when King's closed. We wouldn't have to wait these extra 2 weeks.
Yeah.
If we would have known in June when we met with you
that's my point.
It was closed, then
that's my point.
We could have done
it was already, if it's already in the plan, we could have done that. But since it wasn't in the plan, we couldn't do it.
Yeah, and I'll note too here, the way this is structured, these options aren't mutually exclusive. Probably could have structured it a little bit clearer, but they're not exclusive. So we can say option 1 we want, and that addresses if it's over 1.3, and option 2 is what we'd get if we are under. So just to add that clarifying note. But yeah.
And actually, for what you're saying, Glenn, if quota remains open up to 7 days per week in August and September, we can pick that date. But again, we need to know in June is the issue. We need to know in June when we're trying to put in the regulations for August and September what that opening date will be. And that, I think, the projection.
But can't we say August 1st? Opening date's gonna be August 1st. And then if for some reasons the Kings are open, we'll just do emergency rule change and open on the 16th, like we've done before. I mean, it's all managed on emergency rules and within the state anyway.
Well, we actually are aligned with federal rule, so that process.
Exactly my point.
Yeah.
If it's already in federal rule that we can open on August 1st, that doesn't mean we have to. It just says that we can.
Right. Well, and that determination of August 1st is something we can do in June. This language doesn't preclude that.
But it is part of the catch sharing plan, right?
Yeah.
So this is when it has to start being talked about, so you can then put that in writing for the September meeting.
So we also, if we're going to put an emergency rule in to close it on August 1 and open it on August 16th, that also requires an emergency rule for the federal regulations. So, which is, that's just not there. That flexibility that you want is not there.
Well, I would think that if it was already approved and it was signed off on it, it'd be easy enough to do a closure and reopening. And so you didn't have to do it in June. You can do it in July or the end of July.
Yeah. Hold on here. Yeah, we are communicating our August plans to NIMS in June. And then they also are incorporating the regulations as a package with Oregon. We can't communicate to them at the end of July season structure for August. That's within state processes. We could turn it around that fast, but that isn't possible through the federal process. So, but we've noted, I think,
We've got
Yeah,
NIMS is on the
soon.
line and they've heard the conversation, and we can
Mhm.
talk to them between now and when we meet in October. So we hear you, Glenn, and we heard the same from you last year, and we're doing the best we can to be as flexible as we can. Oh, Mel is going to help us out.
Yeah,
Hi,
Hi.
Mel.
Hi. As far as my understanding is, we just don't have the ability to say NIMS is going to open the fishery August 1st. We'll put it in the rule August 1st, 7 days a week, and the state be able to make a more restrictive season. I don't believe there's any authority for the state to do that under the Halibut Act, and the way the regulations are set up for that. So the earliest is, it sounds like you have your June public meeting. You all come to a consensus on how you want the late season to happen. And it sounds like y'all chose to have it open, Halibut open in mid-August, and so that's what we put into the rule. If y'all decided that you wanted to start August 1st, and that was all, everyone came to a consensus with that, that would have been totally fine. We could have opened you August 1st, just like we opened Oregon August 1st with this last in-season rule that we just put out. We just need adequate timing to turn that in-season rule around. There are several people in the West Coast that have to review it after I draft it up, and then it goes to the East Coast for several people to review, and then we have to wait for a completely different entity to publish that. So that does take some time. But again, however, we try to stay as flexible as we can. You tell us what dates you want to fish, and we do our best to make that happen. So again, next June, if it looks like on the salmon side of things, you're going to open that a little bit later in the summer. And when you talk in June, you want to open August 1st, that's not we can do that, just like we did this year for Oregon. But it's something that needs to come through Washington, WDFW as the request. But as far as I know, we don't have the ability to say, yes, you're open, and then WDFW through their process changes the season. Once it's in the Federal Register, that's what's in the Federal Register.
Yeah, thanks, Mel. And I think the problem is on our end in that we don't know if we want August 1 or August 16th until it's closer to the end of July. And so because it's the salmon's quota managed, and it just depends on it, year to year. And so it's really us. And I appreciate your explanation that the flexibility is there for us to do August 1, what is being suggested is that we do something closer to August 1 when we know more when the quota is taken. And that's where we haven't found the right approach to do that as Glenn would like to see it.
Yeah, thanks, Mel. That was really helpful. Just to hear you walk through that. And yeah, I appreciate it's confusing when we have, you know, two regulatory bodies trying to make this kind of all match up. So I'll move on then to the North Coast. And again, here have a tiered approach where these aren't obviously mutually exclusive. So you could have an option 1 or option 2 in combination with option 3. So option 1 is status quo. So again, trying to capture the structure that we had in 2024, where the fishery opened May 1, it would open May 1 of 2025 through the end of the month on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday schedule, and then open in June 5th through the 29th through a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday schedule. That matches the 2024 season structure. Option 2 would open the fishery May 1 and again through the 31st on just a Thursday and Saturday set schedule, and open June 5th through the 28th on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday schedule. And in all of these cases, I'm just not going to repeat, we're obviously open up to 7 days in August and or September. And then the alternative, if the quota or TAC is equal to or below 1.3 million pounds, would open May 1st and run through the 22nd on a Thursday and Saturday schedule, then shift to May 23rd, which is a Friday, and May 25th, which is a Sunday of Memorial Day weekend, and then back to May 29th and May 31st, which are Thursday, Saturday. So just Thursday, Saturday through the month, except shifting from Memorial Day weekend to a Friday and Sunday, and then open June 5th through the 28th on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday schedule. So I'll pause there if there are any questions for the range of options for 2025.
I'm not seeing any hands, Lorna.
Okay, I think Dave, you popped up on my end. Maybe you just need to mute yourself.
I thought I was muted. I just unmuted myself. I
It's the
agree
other
with
Dave.
everything you and I
Other
went over.
Dave.
Dave
Yeah.
Crimquist.
All right, sorry.
Other Dave.
Bye.
Hi, Dave.
Bye.
Yeah, no problems. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Just wanted to make sure you weren't trying to ask a question because I'm not always seeing the hands. Okay. Whoops. Wow. Fat finger. Okay, so then moving forward to the South Coast, just have one proposed option based on input, looking at status quo. So again, the 2024 season structured mirrored with dates for 2025. So opening May 1st through the May 22nd, 3 days per week, on a Thursday, Sunday, Tuesday schedule, and then May 27th, which is Tuesday, and the 29th, a Thursday. And then open a set of days, including June 12th, 15, 17, 19, 22, 24, 26, and 29. And that should add up to 8 days. And again, quota remains open up to 7 days per week in August and September. And also heard there may be some interest for some additional days in June, but don't have specific dates for those. So I don't know, I can pause here again if there's ideas or comments, questions for the South Coast. Steve, go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
Hello.
Yep, we hear you.
Okay. Yeah, shit, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You're
Why
good,
did that
Steve.
happen? So we, our group had a meeting and we generally support the status quo that we had last year before 2025, the 3 days a week. And about the 7 days per week in August and September. I'm not sure all about that, but for the general May, June season, 100%. We status quo. And hopefully there will be hopefully there won't be quota because fishing will be so good that we won't have that option for August and September. But anyway.
Yeah, I'm wishing for that.
Yeah.
Like you guys.
Okay.
Heather tells me I shouldn't be, but I'm like, yeah, I'm looking forward to a year where it's maybe done in May or June. And she says, I don't know what I'm asking for. So anyway, just share that. Okay, that's good to know, Steve. And as far as the 7 days per week in August and September, that's an up to. And as you know, we have the June meeting where we sit down with everyone and say, okay, here's what we think we're going to catch through the end of June, because typically we're meeting early June, and then kind of figure out what might work for August and September. We're not held to having it open 7 days per week. That just gives us maximum flexibility.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah, so don't panic there.
Yeah, because the fishing last year or this year, May, I don't know, the trend is kind of weird. It's been kind of hot and cold in May, and then June was really pretty good. So it's kind of weird. You guys have those figures, but yeah. Overall, we're supportive of the status quo from our area. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Steve.
Okay.
Okay, so then moving south, again, looking at the Columbia River with a tiered approach. Again, the options 1 and 2 would be exclusive. You can pick one of those as well as option 3. And so option 1, again, is status quo, where the fishery would open May 1st and run through the end of the month, nearly so, on a Thursday, Sunday, Tuesday schedule, and open June 1 through June 29th, again on a Thursday, Sunday, Tuesday schedule. And then if quota remains, open up to 7 days per week in August and September. The other option is to open May 1st through the 29th on a Thursday, Friday, Sunday schedule. And then open June 1st through the 29th, the Thursday, Friday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday schedule. So that would just close area 1 in the middle of the week under option 2. And then if the TAC is equal to or below 1.3 million pounds, the option 3 would have it open from May 1 through June 29th on a Thursday, Friday, Sunday schedule. Hopefully I got those details correct. And we'll pause here for any questions or comments on area 1. I think
it keeps going up and down.
Okay.
Which
Yeah. So I think we got option 1 and option 2 reversed. But so going through what's happened the last couple of years, and we so love the potluck fisheries in August. We think that's an amazing way to do business, but we find that the greatest momentum for halibut is in the May, June time frame, and we would like to use as much or even all of our quota from our perspective and others in that time. And so we would like our days to be Thursday, Friday, Sunday in May. And I've talked to Lynn about this also. She didn't, when I talked to her, didn't have any concern. You know, part of the rules of engagement of this process is you have to have everything spelled out. In-season flexibility doesn't, because of the process, not because of the people, but because of the process, doesn't move as fast as we need it to react. So I guess Oregon meaning South Coast Oregon, has devised where they can use optional days, you know, if there's sufficient quota. And because they go through the federal registry process, if the quota is there, they can enact I can't remember what Lynn called them, but for this exercise, I'll call them optional days, which would be the Monday, Tuesday, or if the quota was in such a status where it, you know, you couldn't add one or both days, then they would stick with the original Thursday, Friday, Sunday scenario. So that's kind of what we're thinking down here. We want to use our, like I said, we want to use our quota. You know, there was, I don't know if it's the economy, I don't know what it was, but you know, so some part in the season it was pretty dismal. So on people, both private and on the charter boats, and so we want to stimulate a little more fishing activity, and so we think Thursday, Friday, Sunday we'll do it in May. Like I told Lorna on the phone, we, you know, don't worry about closing, just leave Memorial out of it, fish it, whatever, however that falls. Don't no Tuesday closures, no, or whatever. Let's just Thursday, Friday, Sunday, you know, through May, all the days that those fall on, and then the same in June with the, you know, with the optional Monday, Tuesday days is what we'd like to see as our number one option. Thank you for all your guys' hard work too.
Yeah, thanks, Butch. So what I'm hearing is the preference for option 2.
Option 2 go out as option 1, I guess. You know, but
yeah, it's just the way this is structured. Option 1 is just kind of the 2024 schedule. And then option 2, so you could pick 2 and 3 as we go through this process for like the initial or preliminary alternative.
Awesome sauce. Thank you, Lorna.
Thanks, Butch. We got a couple other hands up, but I want to make sure I'm understanding what the preference is for June. Would it be just continue Thursday, Friday, Sunday?
Yes.
In June?
In June, but as you know, we've tried to add days in June, and we start May 15th, and because of the process, not complaining, it's the rules of engagement. You know, we might not be able to add Tuesday till the middle of an extra day till the middle of June or late June, and that's not reactionary to the to how we need to manage. And so in talking to several halibut managers, both in Oregon and federally, the system, you know, by some's the way they look at it, you have to have those days go through the process, or it takes a very long time to enact them if you want to use them, if you want to add extra days in the middle of the season or in June or any other time. So if you got to, you know, you could decide those days the, you know, third week in May is if they could be used or not. I didn't realize that.
So Butch, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's
So I'm thinking, So is the way, I think what you're, I hear you,
Mhm.
is the way to do this May, Thursday, Friday, Sunday. June is Thursday, Friday, Sunday, unless X percent of the all depth quota is remaining, like say more than 50% of the quota is remaining after May, then you would do Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Sunday. Is that what you're, that,
Heather, that's exactly what I'm saying, and I'm glad you take all that money to think very much smarter than me. So yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. In some way, the state of Oregon does the very same thing. So
okay,
God bless America. So you got it.
I'm following you. Okay. Thank you.
Please repeat that. Those dates.
No.
We got it on
Okay.
recording. It's recorded. The benefit of that.
Right. So
Mm.
June, the season would be in June, Thursday, Friday, Sunday,
Mhm.
unless, and this is just an example, more than 50% of the all depth quota is remaining, then it would be Thursday, Friday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, until the quota is taken.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so it's just a matter of picking what percent we would want to set
Yeah.
that at, and then at what point in the month of May would we like want to pick as the trigger, like, or the point in time where we say, okay, at this date, this percent.
Right.
So,
And it is kind of, as Butch was saying, the May June time frame is kind of short. But I think
mhm,
we can dig into how Oregon does it and
mhm,
see if we can do something like that.
yeah, maybe look at how we've trended percentage wise through May the last couple of years, and when that, like, when we would want to say we'd have that decision made, and at what percent we'd want to have as a set as a threshold. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think we can explore that some more. But I think
Okay.
that's some creative thinking there.
Then we have Dave Johnson next and Larry Phillips after that.
Thanks, guys. I would hope, as the recreational fleet would love what Butch's idea is, I would hope Area 2 would look into that also, because the Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday thing just does not work. We saw that this year, and I would sure hope that Steve and Rich would look into that and possibly keep Area 1 and 2 aligned and adopt what Butch has proposed. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, sorry about that. Dave beat me to it. That'll make Marine Area 2 the only area that doesn't have consecutive days and lining up. We've always advocated, just like Dave, that the recreational group appreciates consecutive days, at least early on in the season, just to make it a little more attractive. I like the option 2 approach. I think that's a great idea in Marine Area 1. But I'm hopeful that we can also add some opportunity that's consecutive days in Marine Area 2. I think just candidly speaking, the optics of that are concerning. I think that we would have one area that's specifically managed with the intent of not necessarily lining up with the rest of them in terms of providing that unique opportunity to the weekend and recreational fishermen. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, definitely appreciate the suggestion. It's been something that has been talked about for many, 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 many years. And one of the principles that we've also operated on, and this is back when we had a fishery that was open for a matter of days, not weeks or months, but a matter of days. And one of the principles was we'd have one weekend day and one weekday. And an attempt to, I mean, we could have a fishery that was open, 4 days, 5 days in a row, and that would be it. And so the idea of one weekend day and one weekday spreads that out. And we know our coastal communities are dependent on fishing, whether it's commercial or recreational fishing. And so knowing that the public coming to Westport is important for the economy, and coming to Oahu is important for the economy. And so we really tried to find that balance. And I'll tell you, Westport can take a lot of halibut fast. And so when we talked about, this is where we get into why the sub areas are sometimes structured differently. It's for that. And we've definitely seen a big change in the Columbia River with the quota going a lot faster than it used to. But that's the reason for it. And just because we've been having the conversation for years and years and years doesn't mean we shouldn't have it anymore. I agree. It's something we've been talking about for a long time, and that's because it's important. So there was also definitely an interest until a couple years ago of aligning the days, so we didn't see one area get hit really hard and then another area get really hard. So having the days aligned was important. So I think this is excellent input from everybody, and exactly that whole idea of putting options out for public review. And this gives us a really good amount of stuff to dig into between now and our public meeting in October, and in preparation for November. So thanks for all of that.
Yeah, I just want to echo. I really appreciate the thought that went into all of the ideas. Having looked at looking at the catch data as it comes in, looking at it daily, weekly through the season, I'll just kind of again emphasize what Heather said, where Area 2 can take a lot of halibut. There's a lot of potential there. And so I understand both the interest in having consecutive days. I'm particularly curious to see, maybe we get a little test run of what that looks like for August. Not having done that before, but also recognize just that concern of doing that in the spring months of having consecutive days, and how that could really, I mean, it's not a bad thing to generate catch, but it might be at the expense of maybe days later in the season. So yeah, I can understand trying to balance those kind of competing needs. So Butch, go ahead.
Steve was before me, so I'll
Okay.
yield before Steve.
Okay. Heather, I just want to really appreciate what you just said. You coined it perfectly. The reason we have these weird days, odd days, we don't go every day, is because what you said, our season used to last 3 or 4 days. And that's why we went to the odd days. And you said it perfectly. And I will still stand behind that. Realizing that the quota could go down next year, I would still defend keeping the staggered days, and also understanding that we need to catch the quota. But I appreciate the format that we're on going on the staggered days. You know, it's not just my boat or a couple charter boats, it's the town. If the halibut is stretched over days, just like the salmon, it helps not just some charter boats, but it helps the town. You know, when just like if salmon close down and there's this and that for bottom fish, then it's not the same. The longer we have a season for halibut or salmon, whatever, stretched over the calendar of the season, it's better not just for the few boats, but the motels, the restaurants, and everybody, not just the few that want to, you know, get it and go. But I really appreciate what you said, Heather, and I'll let it go from there. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks, Steve. You also commented after Butch's suggestion or explanation for the season dates in June will be this, unless there's more than 50% of the quota remaining, then it'll be this.
Okay.
Is there, I mean, any interest of putting something like that out for public review for Marine Area 2? And then maybe that, I mean, because Marine Area 2 is different in that June has those specific 8 days. So just something to think about.
No. So
Okay.
I got to reread that, what Butch is talking about. But I think if a few more days in June would not hurt, even if they're during the deep water time. I don't know if that helps. Right. So right now, as it stands, we have starting towards mid-June. It's like 3 days per week in June. Is that correct?
No, in June you do it does, like it would be starting June 12th. It's just, well, I guess it is. It's those specific days. So 12, 15, 17, 19, 22, 24, 26, 29.
Yeah, that should follow the Thursday, Sunday, Tuesday schedule.
It does. Why don't we say it like that?
Because I literally said status quo is how we presented it in 2024,
Right.
and we plugged dates in instead of continue. So just to make it a little bit more confusing. So sorry about that.
Well, you got me. And I know I recognize that we've been writing it like that forever, but I didn't realize it followed that.
Yeah, it does. So yeah, I think
Yeah, more confusing. I don't think we'd be opposed to that, but we'll just we need to talk about that a little bit more. But
okay, so we could explore what I'm hearing you say, Steve, is something prior to June 12th, predicated on some amount of Area 2 quota being available, or a percentage by a certain date in May. Kind of similar to the same concept for Area 1.
Or maybe you want to keep it June 12th, but this is where you bring in another day of the week that's a consecutive day.
Yeah, like a Friday.
You guys, I'm not
or
going to
midday.
I'm not going to say yes or no right now. I'm sorry.
No,
that's okay.
Fine. Yeah.
Okay. We got to think about that. Talk to people.
Yeah, we're spitballing some things here.
I don't want
It's
to
okay.
put something weird out there and not have our group like not in favor of that. So I'm just not going to comment on that right now. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
But
Yeah, I just and I totally appreciate and what Dave Johnson said. I do, and maybe at some point in time, you know, get a few more halibut. You know, maybe we could get to that, but you know, it's the thing of it is you know, the Columbia River and Westport try to align and, salmon and all the regulations. But when it gets right down to it, Neah Bay's wants and needs are different than Westport's and El Waco's, and La Push's wants and needs might be a little bit different. And for the most part, El Waco is, also competing with a lot more ports for the same fish. I mean, it's the same drive to Newport, Depot Bay, Garibaldi as it is El Waco. And so, we have to have a reason for people to, choose. And so, that is one of the reasons that we want our structure. We have 2 days in a row and we skipped a day. So we really just don't align up with one day. And so I just want to say that, and then also, Westport Sport and Charter has a pretty awesome groundfish fisheries that we don't have down here, or because of the competition with all those other ports. And you got the great state of Seattle, fishing, right out your back door. They perceive it's your back door. So, those are the couple things where I don't, I'm not trying to put our wishes and needs certainly on Area 2's wishes and needs, just like I don't try to, put my will of what Neah Bay or CQ or whatever wants. And I think we've had a great dynamic on that over the years. Salmon is always a little bit different, north to south. And so I just want to make that clear that I am not trying to, this is what we feel is good for El Waco. We're not trying to say that this is what should be done in Westport. I do think that maybe Steve take back on getting some, how were those days for this exercise, Heather, I would say it this way, the optional days to be worked out in a percentage or be on the table, because the system, like I said, doesn't allow us to react to quota that we have left over. You guys have devised a way late in the year to get to that, or potentially get, I think that's awesome sauce. But I think that we just should have a mechanism. And I'm not telling Westport what to do, but we feel we should have a mechanism to do that here in Area 1 if we need it. So anyway, those are just a couple thoughts and what I wanted to get out there. And I like I said, I don't dissupport. I do totally agree with what Dave said, but I have to kind of explain why we did that and why I don't think our Westport brothers are off base at all. It's just trying to do what's best for their community, and that's what we're trying to do. So anyway, thank you guys, or ladies.
Thanks.
I'm sorry.
Thanks, Butch. Go ahead, Dave. Dave, we see your hand up. Can you hear me?
Come on, get a little-
Oh.
So maybe I can step through the rest of the slides.
Okay.
If Dave could get the
Hop
question,
on.
I don't know whatever's holding him up. We can still come back to him.
Okay, sounds good.
So I think, yeah, after the range of options that we want to consider.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, now we can. Go ahead. Maybe not.
Shoot.
What does it mean when all you
So
can hear is,
close.
can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay, well, we'll proceed, and then again, if Dave can get through, we'll take his
So you got me
question.
now?
Yes.
This damn technology. I feel like Paul Moranti. I love you, buddy. So the only thing I brought up as a suggestion would be to Steve and Rich to take it back to their group for the June to add Friday instead of Tuesday. I think it'll really help the town of Westport.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, Dave.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think from what Steve said, it sounded like he wants to be able to bring some of these thoughts back, and there's still time in this process. It's going to the council in September. It's kind of a good segue, assuming I see your hand still up, Dave. Maybe that's just legacy. But from here, next step is to take this information. We'll write a report that goes into the council briefing book for September, and that will help inform council discussion as they recommend these preliminary options for public review. Following the September council meeting, we'll conduct another one of these WDFW or Washington public meetings. That's going to be scheduled for October 3rd. You can look for an invite coming out in advance of that. And that's where we'll review the options from September, the discussion, and refine our Washington recommendations. So again, more opportunity for input as we step through this process. From October, we will then again submit our final recommendations through a report to the council. The council will consider the public comment and then make a recommendation for adoption in 2025 of the catch sharing plan. And just, I guess, stepping back here, when this presentation is posted online, you can follow the link to the September council agenda, noting that if you wanted to participate or listen virtually, I believe the halibut is on the 20th, which is a Saturday. And if the agenda has not changed, look, I think I have it right here. It's, I believe, the first thing on the 20th. So shortly after 8 a.m., however long it takes the council to get their call to order and then begin that day's agenda. So if you want to hear discussion live, you can do that Saturday morning. Then again, yes, our October 3rd meeting, and that would lead into the November council meeting where they'll make the final adoption for the catch sharing plan for 2025. And then the annual IPHC meeting is that last week of January this year in Vancouver. And at that point, they consider all the scientific information, stakeholder input, manager input, and establish the annual catch allowance or the TAC that we'll have to work with for 2025. So I think at this point, if there's any questions, but I think between me and Heather, we were able to capture the notes and the comments. Obviously, this is recorded, so we're able to go back, or any of you can go back and listen to it if you'd like. But we will, again, craft a report that we'll submit to the September briefing book, sharing the thoughts from this meeting. And then here, just next steps, again, kind of just showing you what the meeting schedule looks like. And with that, I think we can take any questions.
Lorna,
Hey,
I
Lorna,
was
it's
just,
Dave again.
oh, go ahead, Dave, you first.
Okay.
any chance we can do this in person in October?
In person?
Yes, I'm tired of these Zoom meetings. I want to give
We,
Steve a hug.
we could think about that.
I love
Probably
you too. I'm not
do
going to be here in October.
did I pick like hunting season or some? It should be early enough, right?
Could
before
have we
deer.
done, I wonder if we could do something like a hybrid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we could do in person or a hybrid. We might be able to pull that off. I think there's become sort of an expectation of having it made available virtually. I know here, Region 6 office, I think it's well set up to be able to do a hybrid meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Just ensure that maybe we have some tech support that's more expert than myself to make that happen. But
Mm-hmm.
We can all meet in Heather's new office.
Yeah.
mm-hmm. So yeah, we can take. I don't see
We
a
can
reason
definitely
why.
think about it. The only thing I was going to add, Lorna, to the next steps is just, I know, yeah, I think we've got really good notes on the options here. Just a reminder that it's for public review, so the options can be robust, and we narrow them down at our meeting in October. And with that, I feel like, Steve, I know there's some things proposed and you want to think about it more, and we definitely appreciate you wanting to reach out to folks, but happy to follow up with you to make sure we you and Rich and others from Marine Area to make sure what we put forward is has been something you've thought about. Go ahead, Butch.
I want to hug Dave too, but that's not why I got my hand up. I would just trust in you and Lorna to come up with a percentage when we enacted one day or both days. You would know that much better than I. You'd have all that information at your fingertips. I would just probably use the last 2 years or 3 years as the scaler instead of going back, when we would go till Christmas time at the Columbia River. So
Yeah.
I think, and then whatever you guys come up with would be fine with me. Thank you.
Okay. I also think you're welcome, Butch. And I also think we don't have to have that percentage worked out for public review. I think we can describe it in the report as something like this. And then for final, we would be able to come back with, it's like, that's what this would look like. So we don't have to try to do it in the next couple weeks or week.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say if we can capture it conceptually and then plug in numbers and even maybe be able to share some of that at the October 3rd meeting, like what years we picked and where we landed. Maybe even have some options, or like I think getting some of your input might be helpful at that point as well, just from everyone looking at it. So yeah, I would not want to be trying to get this done before the briefing book deadline for September. And
yeah,
agree, we've got time to dig into the numbers and again, kind of share those. It's what that analysis might look like. Was there another hand up, Heather? I see them go up,
Paul,
but then I don't see them stay.
Paul's got his hand up. Hi, Paul.
Okay.
Can you hear me, guys?
Yep.
Okay. I just want to interject another idea that I've been watching. And based on my experience at the Gap, California, I think we should do, after I confirm more with the guy from up and down the coast, but some days in June, I'm an advocate of that. I'm also going to maybe reserve the idea that, hey, as maybe unexpectedly, the salmon quota really got ate up this year fast. That it is valuable to have halibut left over to be used in the late summer. I think that's really going to be a valuable thing this summer. I think most of the guys would agree to that. So again, preparing for some rationale why we don't need it, we should shift it. Although it's a relief to hear that California doesn't sound like they are in an angst over the short of their season this year. For in the future, it's nice to have that late halibut season in the event we have an extraordinary year where we thought we're going to eat up our salmon quota a week or two before. I just want to put that out there for some of the guys that hear that to reconvene, you know, guys in my group, Westport and up and down the coast, to take that in, that leftover halibut isn't always just left over. We are going to try to do our best to utilize it for a very good purpose. That's about my contribution on that.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Paul.
Paul.
So Heather, so California, are they not like catching all their quota? They're not
Yeah.
like huh?
What we heard today, Steve, was they're right at the halfway point in their season, and their attainment at halfway through is at 30%. So just their look forward is that they're probably going to be able to get through the end of their season with the how much quota they have left. So that was good news.
Yeah. Why is that? Is that because of the weird economy? Because I know
You know what?
we were.
We didn't
whatever.
talk about it, but I'm curious if how things got started for them was slow like us, or perhaps the economy. But we didn't really get into any of the details.
Okay. 'Cause I know we weren't. Our town wasn't super busy on halibut in the early going too.
Mm-hmm.
So okay. Well, thank you, you two, for everything you do, and look forward to the next meeting. And we'll be talking with our peers about all the stuff that got laid out about the consecutive days, etc.
Okay. Appreciate that. Thanks, everyone.
Steve.
I think anything else, Lorna?
Nope. I think we are at the end of the presentation, just a couple more slides that have links to information. I think that's most useful for folks that might see this or access this presentation on the web.
Okay.
So yeah, we are through, and I think we've covered all of the needs for what we were looking at with this meeting.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. As always, we appreciate hearing from you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thanks for the work.
Thank you. You're welcome. And yeah, thank you. We'll give you about 15 minutes of the evening back.
Thanks, Lorna and Heather. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay, that's good. That's actually really good.